Hello, I'm Bob from Bob's Workshop. Today I'd like to show you my latest building that I'm constructing for my Lionel O Scale layout. It's going to be a German restaurant this time, and it's made of the same materials that I've been working with this summer. Foam core, XPS foam insulation, some mat board, cardboard, and a lot of hot glue. So this is going to be part one of two. Today, I just want to focus on the basic construction. Part two will wrap it up with paint and details. So here's part one. I hope you like it. When you first make a sketch of something to build, how often does the final project turn out like your initial idea? For me, not too often. Even the layout for my first cuts into the foam core are slightly different. Instead of two garage openings, I now have one, and the placement of the windows above has also been simplified. But that's a pretty cool feature of building with foam core, cardboard, and XPS insulation. They're all pretty easy to cut and shape. And the hot glue means that you can put pieces together very quickly. For this project, I'm going to include a bit of an interior for 3 of the 4 levels. I also want to have LED lighting for both the interior and the exterior. Right now, it's just a vague thought, but I'm thinking about a sign that would also be lit from within. Cutting wood with a utility knife was possible, and that's what I used on my earlier buildings. But with this little saw, it's going to make my life a whole lot easier. It allows me to make more precise, more squarish end cuts, like the ones I did for this half-lap joint. I'm going to have a second story wrap-around deck, and this saw has really improved the quality of my work. It was less than $10 on Amazon, and it even came with 2 blades. Balsa wood is much easier to work with, but it's not very strong and also not exactly cheap. Leftover pine scraps and my table saw in the garage means that I have a ready supply of wood to cut to any size I might need. Pine is harder than balsa, so it takes more effort to cut and sand, but pine is much stronger. Plus, in my case, it was also free. Spreading that much hot glue over such a big area was kind of risky. One end can start to cool off before you finish applying at the other. But this time, even though I had to line the deck up quickly and in one shot, it all actually went well. Working with wood, even in a small scale like this, can be so very satisfying. Most of what I used are the thin strips that measure about a 1/4 inch wide. I used them for the decking, to outline the corners on the roof, and for the timbers on each outer wall. Those are raised just enough so that I can fill the spaces in between with a thin layer of joint compound. Even though it's about the same size, this isn't a flimsy cardboard tube from inside a roll of paper towels. It's much thicker and way more rigid, which gives it some strength, but it's also harder to cut. I've already applied one coat of Mod Podge to the cardboard and the foam bottom. I'll fill in the diagonal seams of the cardboard tube at a later time, and I'll be using more joint compound. The white pencil lines show me where I still need to add more of the wooden strips, which I couldn't do until the turret was glued in place. Now that that's finished, I can begin working on the roof. I shouldn't do it, but I just can't help myself. So I tried to estimate the number of tiles that I glued down. The wide sides each have about 150 pieces each. The two smaller sides together, probably about the same. So maybe 450 chunks of mat board in total. That's a lot. So the roof took a while, but I enjoyed the process. Another thing that I also enjoy is cutting and carving XPS foam insulation to look like stone blocks. In previous builds, I cut each block individually and glued each one down, but for this building, I'll carve the stones from one piece of foam. Two, actually. One for each side. Once the drywall compound has dried, I'll take away some of the high spots by sanding, and then remove even a little bit more with a damp rag. I want the walls to look like textured stucco, but I also want them flat enough so that I can apply decals later. Decals that will look like travel posters, maybe a large menu, or even a sign or two. All of the various materials, the foam core, the XPS foam insulation, the wood, the mat board, and the joint compound were all covered with a coat of clear flat finish Mod Podge. It gives all of the surfaces a decent amount of protection, and it's also a good way to get ready for paint, which will have to wait until the next episode. So until then, this has been Bob's Workshop. Thanks for watching, and take care.